we are introduced to Song Zion. She is on a plane that is crashing. Song Zion really does not want to die as she has only started to create a better life for herself. She is a top surgeon who is a genius that is respected all over the world. We see that at her work she is always the best surgeon to call if there is an emergency during an operation. All her colleagues admire her as she is a true prodigy. But Song Zion has a massive secret. While in the present she is a genius surgeon, she actually has a very complex past. Hundreds of years ago she was Alistair Rowland, a part of the royal family. As Alice she committed a great crime against her people and was sentenced to death. This sentence was to be carried out by Alice being burned alive. Alice lived a very comfortable life with her royal family and she had everything. For some reason Alice managed to retain her memories in her new life, and now as Song Zion she is trying to redeem herself. That is the main reason Song does not want to die in this current plane crash. She is not yet ready to leave this world as she is only now starting to fix her mistakes. The plane starts to catch on fire as it falls to the ground. Suddenly Song wakes up in a totally different place. She is in a familiar room, wearing a formal dress. Suddenly a maid arrives at her door. Song also looks totally different. She looks like she did when she was Alistair Rowland. Song has now once again returned to her previous life. She is now again Alistair Rowland. This time she is a lot younger, so she still did not commit that grave crime. Her maids are all scared of her as she has always been terrified. Alice remembers how she was in this life. She was cruel to the maids and all of them called her the female monster. Still now Alice is young enough to change her ways and fix her reality. She has flashes of a horrible memory. It seems to be her great crime. She remembers her injured father begging for mercy. 10 days pass since Alice has returned to her royal life in the past. She has been getting used to her old home and old life. Alice still feels pretty strange being back at her old home and living that royal life. She is certain that this is her true second chance, and she decides to truly change and not commit the same mistakes as she did before. Alice talks to her maid called Mary and asks her about the punishment being over. The past 10 days Alice has been grounded because of something naughty she did. Alice does not remember what she did, but she knows that she was always a troublemaker. Mary informs Alice that tonight her father, stepmother, and her brothers will have a formal dinner, and they want her to be there. Only the first prince will not attend as he is busy doing his work as a knight of the royal guard. Alice enters the dining hall and there she spots her family. It has been many years since she last saw them. Alice gets emotional and starts crying. These are tears of joy. She is hugged by her brother called Grace. Grace is the second son of the royal family. He scolds his father for punishing Alice for 10 days. Alice apologizes to her family and thanks them for always being there for her. Alice is really happy that she is reunited with her family, and she also knows that she has not yet committed that great crime. She wants to change that this time around. The following morning Alice is talking with Mary. She decides to help Mary with the chores around the house. Mary is totally surprised as Alice never acted like this before. Still, the night before Alice also apologized to the maids for being cruel in the past. She also offered to help Hans and his sick mother. While some think that Alice is not right in her mind, Mary thinks that Alice has truly changed for the better. Alice decides to do some work as she gets used to her old life. That same day she goes to visit her father while he works. Alice brings him tea and greets him with a smile. Her father is still getting used to her new personality, and he does not know what to do. Still, Alice makes amazing tea and he is just happy to be sharing time with his daughter. Alice then remembers her new life that she had after originally dying. She was an orphan and everyone disliked her. She had all the best grades, but she wanted to spend time with her family from the past. Now she has that second chance. Alice then goes to do some research about the timeline. She has another 10 years until she is executed, and now she has to change the timeline, but first she must remember all the major events. During an event called the Klin Expedition, her second brother dies. Then the Klin War starts and multiple kingdoms get dragged into the conflict. After some time during the war, infection starts to hit the kingdom. Her stepmother died soon after that from the sickness. Soon after, her father and brother are all executed. Alice basically loses everything. Alice decides that she will have to use her medical knowledge to try and save her family and the kingdom from the sickness. Suddenly, Alice also remembers a giant event coming up. She is to be engaged to Prince Link in 2 months. Alice starts to panic as the engagement is coming up. She remembers that after the engagement is announced, things turn for the worse. She feels guilty for causing so much pain to Prince Link in the original timeline. While she is in love with him, she does not want to hurt him or her family. During a family dinner, the first son joins the table. His name is Len and he decides to speak up against the engagement. Len is very cold and he often has a lot of harsh words for Alice. This time Len talks to his father and tells him that Alice is not ready to be an empress, and she should not marry Prince Link as she is still immature and childish. Len thinks that Prince Link is too mature for Alice and that they will not be a good match at all. Grace tries to calm down his brother as he is being too harsh to Alice. Everyone at the table thinks that Alice will get into an argument with Len, but she just smiles. Alice remembers that in her original life she hated when Len criticized her, but now she understands him. She also thinks that she is not ready. For that reason, Alice also decides to stop the engagement by any means necessary. Len goes back to the battlefield as he has a lot of obligations towards the other knights. Before he leaves, he talks with Grace and orders him to take care of the family. Grace tries to explain that Alice is now totally different, but Len does not believe it at all. Alice decides that she will personally meet with the Emperor and try to break the engagement. This is the only way to save herself and the prince as well. Alice will meet with the Emperor in just 3 days, so she has to be ready. Mary is concerned with her dress while Alice focuses on what she will say to the Emperor. Alice is not really worried about dressing fancy. She wants to create the perfect speech for the Emperor so that she can break off the engagement. Mary shows Alice many dresses and Alice cannot choose any. In her life as a surgeon, she did not care about fashion at all, so now she feels strange wearing strange dresses. After an hour, Alice decides to switch her style. She picks a more simple dress that even surprises Mary. Alice also does not wear a lot of makeup as she does not want to be overly flashy. Mary is impressed with how beautiful Alice looks. Suddenly her father arrives and he is totally amazed at his daughter. She looks mature and sophisticated. Soon after, they travel to meet the Emperor. When they arrive at the palace, Alice remembers her life there. She was originally the Empress for 6 years and everything was ruined pretty quickly. She only cared about the palace and her rich life. Now Alice is totally different and she truly wants to change things. Her father is worried and he tells her that if she is too scared they can leave. Alice is brave and she wants to move forward with her plan. Alice and her father will soon meet with the Emperor. Her father is a bit nervous, but he trusts his daughter. Alice, on the other hand, is preparing for a bold move. She knows that she will surely disappoint her father and the Emperor, but this is the best decision for all. She must break off her engagement to the prince. Finally, Alice and her father arrive at the palace and they are informed that the Emperor is waiting for them in the rose garden. When they arrive in the garden, Alice spots the Emperor. He is sitting there among the flowers, reading his favorite book. The Emperor greets both of them with a warm smile. He is very happy to see Alice and her father. Alice then remembers that in her original life the Emperor was exactly the same, a kind and gentle person. When she first arrived to live in this palace, he was always there to help her with a kind word or advice. Then soon after he died, Alice was on his deathbed and he made her promise to be a good empress. Alice failed that mission the first time, but now she wants to redeem herself. Alice also remembers that the Emperor died from a chronic illness, so she thinks about possibly healing him this time so that he does not die. Alice notices that the Emperor is tired. It's obvious to a trained eye that the Emperor is already suffering from his illness. Alice thinks about the first time he fell ill and she thinks about a possible solution. She just needs to find out what this illness is exactly. The Emperor spends some time with Alice and her father. He learns about her making a great tea, so Alice also makes him a cup. Finally, Alice tries to find her courage and tell the Emperor what is on her mind. At that moment, Prince Linden arrives and it ruins the entire plan that Alice had. Prince Linden has arrived to talk with his father. Alice greets him and she thinks about him in the original timeline. She was crazy in love with him, with his cold gaze and his entire persona. He did not feel the same at all. When they married, Alice tried to be the perfect wife. She tried to make him tea, but Prince Linden was cold towards her. He told her that he only married her because that is what his father ordered. Alice was so furious, she wanted to make the prince love her any way possible. Now things are different. Alice does not feel that flutter in her heart. She is indifferent to the prince and she knows that they must never marry as they are not a good fit at all. Prince Linden informs his father that he had important meetings with the War Council. It's revealed that the prince and the Emperor are involved in a very difficult war. They have a lot of planning to do as the war is getting more intense every day. Alice is there to hear their conversation about the army numbers and the battle strategy. Alice remembers how horrible the war was in the original timeline. Her brother Chris died in the war and also all the attempts by the Empire failed. She is now much smarter and knows that the war has to be stopped before it starts to become very bad. The Emperor notices that Alice is there and he asks for her opinion. Alice is at first nervous, but she finally speaks up as this might be her chance to save some life. She would like to save the life of her brother Chris and many other innocent soldiers. Alice finally tells the Emperor that the war has two major problems. The first one is the Moncel Kingdom on the east. Alice explains that while at this moment this kingdom has no reason to enter the war, at some point they will. The current leader is a count called Igrant and his rule is not yet certain. This Count Igrant will try to win over favor and join with the other kingdoms that are at war with the Empire. The Emperor finds this theory very interesting and Prince Lyndon has noticed that Alice has crazy knowledge about the war. He still thinks that her theory is not good enough as the Moncel Kingdom does not have enough soldiers to be a problem. That is when Alice reveals the second problem. What if soldiers are not that important in battle? What if the Moncel Kingdom has another way of winning the war? Alice then reveals a really important part of her presentation. The war will fail because of the locations of the battles. The Moncel Kingdom could easily use a very different approach from a side that the Empire would not expect. If the Empire sends in their expedition of soldiers and the Moncel Kingdom cuts them off from their supplies, all those soldiers could die. The Moncel Kingdom has access to unknown terrain in the forest area, and they could use a different path of attack. The Emperor is totally impressed. He never expected Alice to have so much strategic knowledge. He is impressed that she is able to know the politics of the other countries as well as their army plans. He orders that a special meeting is organized where they will talk about this information. He tells Prince Lyndon to get ready and to use all this information that Alice revealed in the next meeting. The Emperor notices that Alice is now totally different. She is no longer that little girl he remembered. Alice then reveals that there is another giant problem in this war plan. The Emperor is very curious as he wants to know her ideas. Alice then reveals that sickness and disease could cause massive problems for the war effort. The soldiers would be going in a very different environment where the climate is extreme. This could cause illness and could render the soldiers totally useless and sick. Alice says this from experience. In the original timeline, this is what happened. All the soldiers got sick and died very shortly after. Alice comes up with a few solutions to this problem. The soldiers would need to carry extra medical supplies and also focus on personal hygiene. Alice is aware that not washing your hands and following basic hygienic advice can develop into illness further down the road. The Emperor is very impressed and he tells Alice that they will use all of this information. And if this information turns out to be true, Alice will get a medal. Alice then reveals that she has brought a gift to the Emperor. By accident, the Emperor reveals some of the symptoms of his illness. Soon Alice starts to analyze his symptoms and asks questions. Very quickly she realizes what his illness is. The Emperor has diabetes. It's such a simple illness, and because it was not treated, the Emperor died. The Emperor is surprised and he cannot believe all the knowledge that Alice has. She reveals that lately she has been reading a lot of interesting books. Soon she tells the Emperor about his illness. She reveals that he has too much sugar in his blood and he has to control that. The Emperor takes her very seriously and tells her that he will talk with his doctor. Alice is happy because it seems that she has solved many problems. Still, she has to tell the Emperor that she will not marry his son in the future. Finally, Alice finds her courage and reveals the truth. She tells the Emperor and her father that she will not be able to marry the prince. Everyone at the table is surprised by this. Her father is furious and he wants to know why she is doing this. Alice explains that she is not fit to be an empress. She is still too young and she could ruin the entire empire. That is why she does not want to marry the prince. He deserves someone capable. The Emperor likes her honesty and admires Alice. He tells Alice that he is very proud of her and that today she proved that in the future she could be a great empress. Alice did not expect this. The Emperor is not only calm but he is proud of her. Then finally time comes for Alice to reveal the truth. There is another reason she does not want to marry the prince. The Emperor is once again curious, and that is when Alice reveals that she cannot be an empress because she wants to become a doctor. Her father once more loses his mind, but the Emperor is very interested. He thinks that this journey will be difficult, but he will allow Alice to become a doctor, but only if she accepts a bet with him. Alice is confused, but still she might have a chance to become a doctor in the future. The Emperor wants to make a bet with Alice. Alice is a bit confused by this, but she is willing to accept anything if it means she will be a doctor in the future. The Emperor is very impressed with the fact that she has interest in being a doctor. He asks her father if he knew anything about her dreams. The father confirms that he knew nothing about Alice and her plans. The Emperor then tells Alice that being a doctor is a very challenging profession, and he asks her if she knows what it will include. Alice just nods her head. She knows that she cannot reveal the truth to the Emperor. She not only knows what being a doctor means, but she is top in her field. She could literally change the world with her doctor skills. Alice has 30 years of experience in being a top-level surgeon. She is probably the best doctor in this new timeline at this moment. The Emperor then asks Alice if this is the reason she has been reading all those medical books. Alice confirms that this was the reason, and she also tells the Emperor that she is well aware of the fact that being a doctor is hard. Also, she tells the Emperor that there are no laws in the land that stop women from being a doctor. Alice thinks that she has the right to follow her dreams. Alice actually brings up the daughter of a famous leader. His daughter became a doctor as well. The Emperor then has more questions for Alice. He wants to know if she is confident that she can truly pass the doctor's test. The Emperor reveals that to become a doctor it's not an easy process. One must pass a doctor's test, and in that test experts examine everything. Also, nobles and rich people do not get special treatment. Everyone is equal. Alice stops for a moment to think about it. She knows that the doctor profession is one of the most famous and respected jobs that people can have. It's also incredibly difficult to become a doctor in this time, as it's only reserved for rich people and nobles. Still, Alice is confident that she can pass all the tests because of her many years of experience. Alice tells the Emperor that she wants to save people and protect them. The Emperor has now noticed her true passion, but he still wants to test her. Originally, he really wanted her to marry his son and become his family. Now he proposes a new deal for Alice. The Emperor will give Alice a chance to follow her dreams. If she is able to prove that she has the skills to become a doctor, the Emperor will allow this to happen. She will become a doctor and she will not have to marry the prince. If she is not able to pass her tests and she fails, then she will do what the Emperor says. He gives Alice 6 months to achieve this goal, and after that it will be up to him what happens. Alice thinks that 6 months is just not enough time, but she has no choice. She knows that the Emperor is trying to scare her so that she marries the prince. Alice realizes that the Emperor has high expectations. She does not only have to pass her tests as a doctor, but she also has to prove that she is worthy of being a doctor. This means to really show off her skills. Alice has no choice, so she accepts this proposal. She thanks the Emperor for the opportunity. The Emperor thinks that Alice does not stand a chance. She is a daughter of a nobleman and she has had an easy life. He thinks that she will soon give up. The Emperor has no idea who he is dealing with. At that moment, the Emperor tells Prince Linden to take Alice for a quick walk. On their walk, Alice thinks about her past with the prince. He was the one who ordered her execution, but she does not blame him at all. Alice then apologizes to the prince. She tells him that she is sorry for all the trouble she has caused him. She also apologizes to the prince because he is being forced to marry her. That is when the prince reveals that he is not being forced. This surprises Alice, as she always thought he hated her. Prince Linden tells Alice that he is not being forced to do anything, and he does not know who told her that. While that is happening, the Emperor and Alice's father talk. They talk about the war, and soon Alice's father apologizes for her behavior. The Emperor does not think that there is any need to apologize. He likes that Alice is trying to make something out of her life. The Emperor tells Alice's father that she reminds him of her mother. Her mother was also a strong woman and she demanded to become a nurse. This shocked the entire family, as it never happened before. The Emperor will give her a chance to work at a hospital. He knows that Alice will give up after a few hard days. He is still thinking about which hospital to send her. He cannot send her to other royal hospitals, as those only accept students with the best medical qualifications. The Emperor will send Alice to a very special hospital to train there. We then return to Prince Linden and Alice. Alice is a bit surprised, but she tells the prince that it's obvious that he hates her, so she is sorry for the entire marriage situation. The prince is obviously angry, but Alice does not understand why. He storms off and leaves Alice behind. In her mind, Alice is happy. She will stop this marriage that nobody wants, and this will give her and Prince Linden a chance to live happily and find true love. After that, Alice starts to prepare for her training in the hospital. She has another week before she goes to work in the hospital. She asks her brother Chris to take her to a library. She wants to read as many books as possible. She must learn all the medical words so that she can properly give patients a diagnosis. Alice is so happy that she will once more work in a hospital. This is her true calling in life. Alice thinks about all the information she has to learn so that she will be a good doctor in the empire. There are various different methods of treatment and she has to know all of them. She then remembers that the person who will revolutionize medicine in the empire is the great alchemist Fleming. Alice goes to the library and she starts to write all the new information. She also discovers various cures that are not used in the empire because they do not know that the medicine can work. Alice is able to find a possible cure to a heart disease and many other illnesses. Many hours pass and Alice is still in the library. Her brother Chris is worried about her. The servants arrive and tell Chris that his sister has not eaten anything the entire day, and she is still in the library even if it's dark outside. Chris is worried and he goes to talk with his sister Alice. She has totally immersed herself in the world of her medical books. Chris is surprised to see that she is so interested in this subject. He also sees that she is taking numerous notes. Chris cannot believe that his sister is a medical genius. Chris then tells Alice that it's time to go back home and take some rest. Alice then asks her brother if she can stay a bit longer. Chris is totally amazed and confused by his sister. She is like a totally new person. Alice talks to her brother Chris and her father. They are both worried that she has been studying too much. It's a lot of work and she has been getting barely any rest these past few days. Also, her father is worried because Alice will do her training in the Teresa Hospital. This is not a fancy hospital, it's a relief shelter for the homeless. This is something that might be challenging for a daughter of a noble who has been living an easy life. Her father is worried about Alice. He actually does not want to send her to that hospital as it is a horrible place. He wants to keep his daughter safe at all times. He asks Alice once more if this medical stuff is actually her interest or is she just trying to get out of the marriage with the prince. Alice nods her head and confirms that this is her dream. Her father tells her that he will speak with the emperor and get her out of the marriage, but she does not have to torture herself with the medical training. Alice rejects this offer as she wants to go through with this as this is her life goal. Alice tells her father that she will make him proud and that she will not fail. Final arrangements are made for Alice coming to the hospital. The person in charge of her training will be Viscount Kate. Alice wants to hide the fact that he is the daughter of a nobleman. This way the people training her will treat Alice like a normal person. Alice knows that if they found out about her origin they will reject her. Chris is worried about his sister and he does not want Alice to get too tired and to push herself too hard. After 2 days pass, Alice finally arrives at the hospital. This will be the place where she will learn everything about the medical field in the empire. Alice is excited and ready for the new challenge. That is when we meet a son of a failed baron. His name is Graham Fallen. He is a genius doctor and he will train Alice. Graham hates that he will have to deal with some random girl and train her. This is a waste of time in his opinion. Graham just wants this new girl to be gone, so he promises to get her kicked out as fast as possible. That is when Alice arrives. She uses the fake name of Rose so that nobody knows who she really is. Graham is surprised by her beauty, but he is certain that she has no idea how to be a doctor. He asks Alice a couple of questions and her answers are surprising. Graham learns that Alice did not go to any school and she learned all the medical information by herself. Also, he learns that Alice has seen someone die before. This surprises Graham, but he wants to test Alice. Alice then tells him that when a patient dies, a real doctor has to bury the patient in their heart. This is something only true doctors know, so this surprises Graham. Graham then comes up with a plan to make sure that Alice gives up as soon as possible. He offers to lead her to her working station. Graham brings Alice to her new job. She will be working with beggars. These are the patients that have no hope to recover and they are just dying. Alice is a bit surprised by this and Graham hopes that this will make her give up fast. Graham explains that these patients are not here to be treated or to get better. They are here to die, but they have to be taken care of. This was the wish of the owner of this hospital and now the hospital staff has to help these people. Alice wants to know if there is anything she can do for these people. Maybe she could find a cure for their condition and save them. Graham is surprised and confused by this. He does not understand why Alice is so eager to help the patients. Alice explains that she will do anything to help the patients and that includes the disgusting work. Graham thinks that Alice is strange. He leaves and he is still certain that she will give up in a few days. Alice realizes that Graham just wants to get rid of her. Still, she is here to help people and save them if she can. Alice prepares to work hard and deal with anything. In her life on Earth, she dealt with more brutal patients and she has seen everything. The other nurses are surprised at Alice and how she acts. Alice starts to work on the patients and there is blood everywhere. Later, Alice and the other nurses clean the entire medical room. Alice knows that the most important thing in a hospital is that everything is clean. This will prevent any other illness from being created. Later, Alice starts to help one of the patients. He has broken his back in a fall and now he cannot feel his legs. Alice has to clean his wounds and legs. She will have to use a scalpel. The nurses cannot believe that she is doing all of it alone. Alice prepares to do her first operation in this hospital. She gets her gear and mask, then she grabs her scalpel and starts. Alice is working at the hospital and she wants to prove how amazing she is at being a surgeon. With the help of the other nurses, he prepares a man for surgery. This man has infected wounds and his skin is really bad. There is a very critical injury that Alice has to treat. She prepares everything for a surgical operation. She will use a scalpel and cut off the infected tissue, and that way she will give the man a chance to heal and get better. The other nurses are nervous as they have never seen a woman do this type of surgical maneuver. It is something only done by very educated doctors and not by young girl. Alice puts on a mask and takes the bandages of the man. She then starts to cut in and take off the infection area. The other nurses watch and they are amazed. They notice how precise and calm Alice is. Alice does not want to become an empress. Her life goal is to be a doctor, and that is exactly what she is going to do. The man starts to feel much better right away. Alice is proud of herself, but she knows there is a lot more work to do. For a week she works at that department. This is the department with the most sick patients. Alice and the other nurses help every single patient to get better. We then meet up with Graham. He has to have a meeting with his boss. His boss is furious when he learned that Graham has just left Alice alone and has not been teaching her anything. Graham apologizes to his boss and promises to do better. When he leaves, Graham is frustrated as he does not have time to waste on a noble girl who will leave soon. He does not want to train anybody. Finally, Graham goes to check on Alice and the patients. He is surprised to find that the other patients are now doing much better. The entire room is clean and a lot of the patients have recovered. Most of them are talking and even having a laugh. Graham does not understand what happened as most of the patients were in a pretty bad condition. Graham sees that Alice is sleeping and he goes to wake her up. The patients and the nurses stop him. They all explain that Alice has saved many of their lives in the past week and she deserves a break. The nurses explain that Alice did a lot of surgery on the patients. Graham cannot believe this as Alice does not have the knowledge to be a surgeon. He decides to go check on a patient to see if Alice has messed up something in the operation. Graham checks on the patient and finds that his wound has healed. He cannot believe that Alice managed to do this alone as nobody was able to help the man before. Graham finally confronts Alice and he yells at her. He does not believe that she managed an operation as complicated as this. Graham is convinced that someone came to help her. Alice and the other nurses try to convince him that it was all their own work. Alice does not know how to explain her skills. The Emperor is getting treated by his doctor. The Emperor still feels sick and tired. He wakes up every morning feeling tired. His doctor is the best in the country, but they have still not found a solution to the Emperor's condition. The Emperor tells his doctor that it's no problem as this might be his time to die. That is when Prince Linden joins in. He tells the doctor that maybe his father has an issue with the sugar in his blood. The doctor is totally surprised and he cannot believe that the prince had mentioned something like that. This condition is a very new illness in the medical field and only 20 doctors know about it. It is still being explored as a possibility. The doctor asks Prince Linden who gave him this idea, as they must be a medical genius to have come up with something like that. Prince Linden is surprised. He cannot believe that Alice might have cracked the entire situation. The Emperor does not want Linden to share that secret, so the doctor leaves and he promises to find out more. The doctor then goes back to his office and starts to think about the illness. It is an illness called diabetes and not many doctors know about it. The doctor thinks that the Emperor might be hiding an even more brilliant doctor in his service. Prince Linden talks to his father. Linden hopes that his condition will improve and that he will be fully healed. The Emperor explains that he did not want the doctor knowing about Alice as he does not want her to become a doctor. He wants her to marry Linden. The Emperor and Linden then talk about the situation with the war. The Emperor finds out that Alice was also correct and that their enemy was planning an ambush all along. The Emperor then sends Linden to visit Alice and see how she is doing at the Teresa Hospital. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Graham wants to know how Alice managed to pull off something so complicated as this surgery. She tells him that she read a lot of books and that gave her the skills. Graham cannot believe this is something as this type of surgery is very difficult and requires a lot of practical experience. That is when Graham decides that Alice will be his apprentice. He will become her master and teach her everything he knows. Graham is only doing this to learn if Alice is lying or she is really skilled as a surgeon. Graham has finally accepted Alice as a student starting from tomorrow. The two start to treat patients and Graham wants to test Alice and her knowledge. He soon realizes that she is brilliant and know a lot more than even professional doctors. Graham still cannot believe that she is this experienced and brilliant. That is when Graham tries to play a medical trick question to Alice, but it does not work. She knows all the answers. Finally, he tells her that starting from tomorrow they will be working in a very intense ward of the hospital, the emergency room. Alice goes back home and there her father is worried about Alice. He does not want her to work so hard and also he is worried that she has been working with infected people. Alice explains to her father that this is what she wants to be doing. Her father also gets furious at Graham when he learns that he plans to put Alice in the most intense situations in the hospital. Finally, Alice calms him down and promises that she will stay out of trouble for his sake. Alice arrives at her new position in the hospital. This is where the most intense medical situations happen. It's usually people that are being rushed to operations. In her previous life, Alice has experience with situations like this, so she is ready. The people there are confused. They think that she is a noble daughter and not a doctor. Alice tries to explain that she has come to treat patients there. Soon Graham arrives and introduces himself as her teacher, and all the other doctors fall silent from respect. They all fear Graham and think that he is a badass. Alice starts her first day in this part of the hospital and Graham really wants to test what she has. Alice has now arrived at this special part of the hospital. In this part of the hospital, only the most critically injured patients are treated. Graham has arrived and explained the situation to everyone. Alice will be his apprentice and learn from him. Graham also introduces Alice to another doctor. This doctor is called Hansen. Graham orders Hansen to show Alice around the hospital so that she learns a bit more. Graham has important meetings, so he cannot be there for her the entire day. When Graham leaves, Hansen and Alice take a walk in the hospital wing. Alice is still using her fake name Rose so that nobody knows who she is. Hansen already suspects that Alice is part of a noble family. They talk about the hospital and what happens here. Hansen tries to explain everything and he is quite charmed by Alice and her kind nature. Finally, they arrive in a hospital room with a lot of surgeon tools. Hansen tries to explain a lot of them. Suddenly, their meeting is interrupted by a new patient. Several nurses call the doctor and they all rush over. Graham is not available at the moment, so Hansen tries to treat the patient. The patient is screaming on the bed as they cannot breathe at all. Hansen orders an EKG so that they can test what is happening to the patient and his heart. Alice then realizes that the issue is not the heart but the lung. The patient has a collapsed lung that is putting pressure on his heart. He will surely die before the EKG is done. Alice then decides to take matters in her own hands. She orders the nurse to bring her several tools. She checks the patient's breathing and confirms her suspicions. Finally, the nurse arrives with a tube and a needle. Hansen has no idea what Alice is doing, but he is not trying to stop her. Finally, Alice stabs the patient in the chest and relieves the pressure from the lung. Graham and other nurses arrive and they do not know what just happened. In her quick thinking, Alice has saved another patient. Graham and the other doctors are confused. They see blood everywhere, but the man is breathing normally now. Also, his wound is patched up. Graham wants to know who did this. Everyone points out Alice and she is a bit shy. Graham wants to understand why she used the syringe and stabbed the patient. Alice explains that the patient had a collapsed lung and she had to relieve the pressure in his chest. Graham wants to know how Alice figured out something like this. Alice reveals that she checked his breathing and noticed that she could not hear his heart and that his artery was blocked. It was obvious to her that the lung was not working, so she had to punch a hole through it. Graham finally realizes that Alice is a pure genius. While a good student could learn a lot from books, there is no way that they could know how to apply this knowledge in intense situations. Alice had the calm of an experienced surgeon. What Graham does not know is that Alice is in fact a very experienced surgeon and has been for many years. Graham realizes that she is a genius who will change history, maybe even more than Flaming. Graham then thinks about his journey in life. He was the son born in a noble family and he always wanted to make his family proud. To truly achieve his goals, Graham studied for hours and days, even years. He made himself the perfect doctor, but it never came easy. Now he is looking at Alice and she is only a young girl, but she has the knowledge and the skills of experienced doctors. Graham cannot imagine what she will become in the future. He wants to celebrate as he is excited because he is her teacher. Later in the day, everyone in the hospital starts to talk about Alice. She has now almost become a celebrity as they all think that she is a genius. Alice is a bit worried that she showed off her skills, but she had to save the patient. She can never reject a patient in need. Also, while Alice has only been in the hospital for a month, she is already brilliant. We also see Hansen talking with another doctor outside. They are talking about Alice and it's obvious that Hansen likes Alice. He explains that he liked her from the moment he saw her, but when he saw her saving the patient, he fell in love. Hansen knows that he does not stand a chance being with Alice in a romantic relationship. At that moment, Alice's brother arrives in the hospital. This is the brother that always causes Alice problems.
Prince Lyndon and his friend Randall are walking the city. The prince is now undercover. He has a blonde wig and he has changed his appearance totally. Randall is totally impressed that the prince can just change his appearance like this. This is a specific ability that members of the Empire bloodline have. Lyndon warns Randall to keep his cool so that nobody notices them. Randall is also a knight, and he is very powerful in combat. Still, he very much admires Prince Lyndon, and he serves him on missions. The two are in the town exploring, and Lyndon has a very specific task. While there are some important tasks regarding the war, he has to visit Alice and see how she is doing. Lyndon remembers that his father, the Emperor, is very determined, so Alice never had a chance to get out of the engagement. She has no way to truly win this bet. Lyndon then thinks about the engagement. He does not care who he marries, but still Alice has been creating too much trouble for him and his father. Randall and Prince Lyndon talk about Lyndon and his dreams. Lyndon has had trouble sleeping, and it's a condition that has followed him for 15 years. Randall is worried about the prince and asks him if he ever got medical attention. Lyndon confirms that he has seen many doctors, but none have managed to help him. Since that horrible day 15 years ago, he has been having nightmares all the time. Lyndon and Randall then decide to take a carriage out of the city. Randall admires Prince Lyndon very much as he is a war hero. Not even 2 years ago, Prince Lyndon led his country in a massive war, and he saved many people. In the present, Lyndon and Randall are attacked in an alley. A drug addict has shown up, and he wants their money. Randall takes out his sword and prepares to go and attack. Lyndon stands back as he knows that Randall is a skilled fighter. Randall attacks the drug addict and disarms him. Suddenly, Randall is shot in his stomach. He has been shot by the drug addict, who seemed to have a hidden gun. Lyndon is totally shocked to see his friend shot in front of him in this way. Randall cannot believe that he has been shot, and he is bleeding. Still, he keeps attacking the drug addict, who tries to fire another shot. Randall takes his sword and slashes the throat of the drug dealer. He then falls to the ground, and Prince Lyndon tries to help his comrade. Randall realizes that he does not have a lot of time left. He thanks the prince for everything, and then falls unconscious. Prince Lyndon is now panicking, but he realizes that Randall still has a heartbeat. Still, if Lyndon does not get Randall some help soon, he will surely die. Lyndon realizes that there are no close hospitals, besides one. He finally remembers that the Teresa Hospital is near, so he tries to carry his friend to the hospital. While that is happening, Alice has completed another workday. Graham has questions for her approach in treating a patient. Alice explains her methods, and Graham is once again impressed. He realizes that Alice has knowledge far above any normal human. Still, there is something odd with her. It's almost like she had all her experience in another life, and now she knows everything. Graham is so close to the truth, but he does not figure it out. He asks Alice if she is tired, but she just seems cheerful as always and ready to work. Graham starts to blush and realizes that he has a crush on Alice as well. Alice notices that her teacher is acting odd, but he covers up his emotions. At that moment, a nurse arrives and informs them that there is a new patient. They both run out to see Lyndon and Randall. Alice notices Lyndon, but she does not recognize him. He's a bit familiar, so she stares for a bit. Lyndon explains the situation, and Graham examines the patient to see what the damage is. Soon, Graham realizes that the bullet has hit the spleen, so he cannot help Randall. The blood is everywhere, and there is no way to operate something so sensitive. Graham informs Lyndon that he could never do a procedure like this, even with his experience. Lyndon then offers a very expensive medal from his royal family. He will give anything just to see his friend survive this. Graham just thinks that there is no hope for Randall, and no amount of money can change that. At that moment, Alice speaks up. She offers her help as she thinks she can save Randall. Graham wants to know how she plans to make such a complicated surgical operation. Alice explains that she will remove the spleen and stop the bleeding. Graham starts to think about that idea, and he thinks that it's brilliant. It is a bit advanced, but Alice just keeps coming up with these advanced medical methods. Lyndon is surprised, but he wants to trust Alice. He tells her that he will not accept failure in this situation. Alice promises that she will save Randall, as she is certain that she can do it. Graham finally trusts Alice and decides to agree to the operation. The operation will not be easy, and Alice will need help. Prince Lyndon offers to help at least with stopping the blood during the operation. They all prepare for this complicated operation. Alice gets her surgical mask on, and she gets ready to treat the patient. She will need absolute quiet and also assistance. As soon as she cuts in, there will be a loot of blood. The process starts, and Linda is also in the operation room. He has to use a gaze to stop the bleeding. Alice realizes that she must be fast as there will be too much blood, and she will soon not be able to see anything. Graham is really impressed with his apprentice. He cannot believe how fast and precise she is. Alice announces that she will soon start the removal of the spleen. Prince Lyndon is also using a fake name so that nobody knows about his identity. He is being called Ron, and now he is helping Alice save Randall. Alice tells Lyndon to keep pressure with the bandages. This is the best way to stop the bleeding while she removes the spleen. Graham watches with pure wonder as Alice manages to pull off this extremely difficult procedure. Graham remembers his childhood and how hard he worked. He has always wanted to change medicine and change how people are treated. His goal has been since day one to change people's lives for the better and to create surgeries that are perfect. Now watching Alice, he is finally seeing something like that happen. Alec manages to remove the spleen, and then she ties the organs. This is a process that stops everything from bleeding. She also patches up the wound. Randall has stabilized, and she has stopped the problem. Graham asks Alice if she is tired after the surgery, but she denies it. Graham is as always amazed by his star pupil. After the surgery is over, Lyndon awaits the results. He thinks about Alice and finally realizes that she was not lying. Originally, Prince Lyndon was sure that Alice just did not want to get married, so she made up a story about being a doctor. Now he is certain that this was not true. She truly has a passion for this. This procedure was not just luck. She is a master at this. Alice then arrives to tell the good news to Lyndon. She informs him that his friend Lyndon is now stable, and he is recovering. While his wound is patched up and the bleeding has stopped, his recovery will be long and hard. Lyndon then informs Alice that Randall will be transported to another hospital to recover. Alice then confirms that she will write a detailed recovery plan so that the other doctors don't get confused by the operation. Alice thinks to herself that this surgery is pretty new for this timeline, so the other doctors will be for sure freaked out. She also informs Lyndon that this hospital is free for poor people, but nobles have to pay a lot. She tells him that he will probably get a huge bill. Lyndon is not worried about this, as he is the prince of an empire. Lyndon then tries to leave, but he starts to feel dizzy. Alice tries to help him, but he does not want any medical attention. Lyndon also blushes when Alice tries to help. Several days later, the doctors of the other hospital lose their mind when they see what Alice managed to pull off in that operation. They have never seen something like this. The operation on Randall has ended, and the man has been saved. Everyone is shocked by the operation, as something like that has never been achieved in this timeline. The doctors have all gathered, and they want to talk about the amazing operation. Baron Sven, who is the royal doctor, has brought a reporter to one of his other doctors. The report talks about the spleen being removed. The other doctor thinks that this is all a fantasy, as an operation like this is not possible. Sven tries to convince the other doctor that the operation really happened. Sven tells him that the patient Randall had a bullet wound near his spleen, so there is proof. Now the other doctor is totally surprised. They now have to find out who did this amazing operation. The two of them start to figure out who was in the hospital that day. They finally realize that Graham was there. He has always been a brilliant doctor, so they are certain that he has managed to pull off something that amazing. They want to find Graham and talk to him, but the only problem is that he has been missing for a while. Since that operation was completed, he has not been in the hospital. In the meantime, we see that Alice is now a bit nervous. The first days when Graham did not show up, she did not think that nothing was wrong. But now several days have gone by, and she is worried that something has happened to him. Alice is also worried that she made a mistake, and that is why he is not coming to work. Alice finally decides to take matters in her own hands, and she goes to visit Graham at his house. She takes a night with her and they travel a few days. Finally, they arrive at the giant mansion and Alice prepares to enter the house. She really wants to find out what has been happening with Graham, as he is her mentor. Alice enters the house that belongs to Graham. His housekeeper welcomes Alice into the house. She also informs Alice that Graham will not be coming out of his room as he is deep in his research. Alice explains that she wanted to visit to see when he is returning to the hospital to work again. The housekeeper explains that the past few days, her Lord Graham has been deep in research, as he is looking for new medical clues. He has told her that he saw a medical miracle in an operation, and since that day, he has just been reading books. Alice realizes that maybe the operation that she pulled off was the reason that Graham is now acting so strange. The housekeeper explains that Graham and her are the only survivors of a very old sickness called the Londo epidemic. This illness killed all members of the Graham family, and since that day, Graham has been focused on becoming the greatest doctor ever. Graham actually promised when he was only 10 years old that he would become the best doctor and cure every sickness that exists. Alice finds this story really sad, and now she better understands Graham and his focus on medicine. The housekeeper tells Alice that she does not need to worry as Graham will return to work tomorrow. When Alice leaves, we can see Graham looking at her through the window. The following day, Graham returns to work, and Alice is happy to see him. She still thinks that maybe he is upset about the operation and what she did. Graham tells Alice that they need to talk, and he leads her to a room with other doctors. That is when Alice spots Dr. Sven in the office. She starts to panic as he was her doctor when she was really young. Sven might blow her entire cover as he knows her family story. For a moment, Sven is really surprised. He recognizes Alice, but then he remembers the girl he treated. That Alice was mean and brash. She could never become a doctor and work at the hospital. Sven convinces himself that he is mistaken. Now the two doctors want to talk with Graham and congratulate him for the operation. They start to praise him for the operation he did on the spleen. That is when Graham stops them and tells them that he did not operate. It was Alice who did the operation. Graham tells the doctors that they should talk with Alice, as she is the one who was in charge of the whole operation. He did not have anything to do with the operation. The doctors cannot believe what they are hearing. Alice is this young girl standing in front of them, and now Graham is telling them that she performed the most insane operation of their age.
Graham tells the doctors that they should talk with Alice as she is the one who was in charge of the whole operation. He did not have anything to do with the operation. The doctors cannot believe what they are hearing. Alice is this young girl standing in front of them, and now Graham is telling them that she performed the most insane operation of their age. The doctors still do not believe that this is true even after Graham has told them. They ask Alice personally if this is the truth. Alice now freezes from the fear for a moment. She does not know what to answer, and she realizes that she has put herself into a bit of a troubled situation. It has barely been a month and she has just started her work at the hospital, and yet she has performed such a complicated surgery. It's no wonder that nobody believes her. Still, if she lies, she will cover her talent. Alice has made a promise to not hide her skills so that she can save as many people as possible. She finally speaks up and tells the doctors that she was the one who performed the surgery. Still, they do not believe her at all. One of the doctors explains that there is no way a girl so young could pull off something that complicated. They cannot trust her, maybe she made it all up. The doctors now demand that Alice explains the entire operation in detail to see if she truly knows what she is talking about. Alice then starts to explain the entire process of taking out the spleen. She starts to talk about how the operation starts, what she did, and how she cut into the spleen and removed it. She also explains how she repaired the tissues around the injury. She talks for quite a while, and the doctors are totally surprised. They have no words. Sven realizes that this sounds like all the lectures legendary doctors gave. This girl did not just make this up, she knows all the details. Still, the doctors do not understand how she was able to teach herself this. Alice then thinks about telling them the truth, to tell them that she was a doctor in her past life. Alice knows that nobody would believe her, so she chooses a different story. She tells the doctors that she read many medical books and started to figure out different versions of the operation. Finally, she figured out a way to do the operation with removing the spleen and then repairing the tissue. The doctors are now even more impressed. This means that this young girl read a couple of books and managed to create a complicated solution for an operation she never did. The doctors are now convinced that Alice is a pure genius who will change medicine. She is on the level of legendary doctors who have made medicine possible the way it is today. Graham then joins in and comments on Alice. He tells the doctors that she is the best doctor he has ever worked with. She is perfect and calm, and she is already a better doctor than Graham will ever be. The doctors truly are amazed that someone like Graham would give this praise. Finally, Dr. Sven offers Alice a job at his elite hospital. He wants to use her genius right away. Sven thinks that there is no point in Alice wasting her talents in a poor hospital. He has offered her a job with him at the Royal Cross Hospital, which may be the most important hospital in the land. Alice is also excited about this, as that would be the greatest honor to work for that hospital. The other doctor thinks that this is a silly idea, as Alice does not have any qualifications. Sven thinks that there is no problems. They talk about all the parts of the process. Alice still does not have a license to practice medicine, and the Royal Cross Hospital does not accept apprentices. Also, there is a very limited list of people who can work there. Sven is surprised that Alice still does not have her license. She explains that she still has to take the medical test to get her license. Sven then comes up with a plan that Alice takes the test as soon as possible. She should practice medicine for at least a year before she enters the test, but Sven is confident that Alice will pass the test without a problem. Then they start to talk about the test. It seems that the Emperor has given very clear orders about this year's test. He wants the test to be extra difficult so that not a lot of people can pass the test. He has ordered everyone to make the test almost impossible so that only the best doctors can pass it. Many people are worried that this year nobody will pass the test. Sven is curious how Alice will do on the test. Also, before she goes to take the test, she has to have recommendations from 3 professors. Sven and the other doctor offer, and also they order Graham to give his sign-off. In a few days, Alice will participate in the medical test and try to pass it and become a real doctor. Alice then leaves the meeting and she is really happy. She never believed that this could happen so fast. While she wanted to train herself for a year, she always knew that she was ready to take the test at any time. Also, Alice realizes that the Emperor made the test extra hard this year. She thinks about the fact that maybe he wants her to fail the test so that she would marry his son. Alice then starts to plan how she will learn for the test. At that moment, she spots the noble called Ron. This is actually Prince Linden, but using a disguise to cover his identity. Alice is now worried that maybe Ron has found out about her true identity. Ron has come to talk with Alice. She is pretty nervous as she thinks that he might expose her identity. She has no idea that Prince Linden already knows everything about her. Ron leaves in a hurry as he is also awkward around Alice. Alice then grabs his hand and tells him to stay as she needs to examine him. Ron has told Alice that he has been feeling really tired the past few months and that he does not sleep at all. Alice forces Ron to get examined in her office. She asks him about his symptoms and Ron tells her about everything. Still, Ron thinks that all of this is pretty strange. He cannot help himself but to listen to Alice. Prince Linden was already examined by Dr. Sven numerous times, so he is convinced that Alice will be unable to find anything wrong with him. Finally, Alice starts to examine his face, his neck, and to take his temperature. Ron feels a bit awkward as Alice is really close to his face. He blushes a bit. Finally, Alice starts to think about the problem and she figures it out pretty fast. She tells Ron that his thyroid gland is inflamed. He previously told her that he was sick 2 months ago. The thyroid gland was activated at that moment and it did not recover. For that reason, Ron now feels tired all the time as his body is not getting rid of the toxins. Ron has never heard about this gland. Alice realizes that in this timeline there is not much information about this gland, but she knows all about it. She tells Ron that he will have to take some medicine, but he will get better. He can visit his own doctor after 3 days for new medicine. This entire process will last for 2 months until he is totally back to normal. The father of Alice meets with Baron Goth and they talk about her progress. Her father cannot reveal who she truly is, but she wants to know about this girl Rose who is working at the hospital. Rose is the name Alice has been using to keep her identity hidden. Baron Goth has nothing but praise for Alice. He talks about her miracle work with the patients. He claims that she is a genius doctor and she was fated to work at a hospital. The father cannot believe what he is hearing. His daughter used to have such a bad temper. There is no way that she is now ultra nice and a great doctor. Baron Goth confirms that she is a pure genius. After he leaves, Alice's father is alone and thinks about the situation. He is so proud of his young daughter and she reminds him of her mother Teresa. She was also a brilliant doctor and now Alice is walking that same path. In the meantime, Baron Goth finds it strange that everyone is asking about this Rose girl, but he has still not figured out her true identity. Later we see that Prince Linden is still meeting with Alice as her patient. He is using his secret identity of Ron so that she does not know who he is. Ron talks with Alice about his condition and she explains that he is doing much better and soon he won't be needing any more medication. Ron is a bit sad that he won't be able to visit Alice and talk with her. Later in the day, Baron Goth also goes to meet with the Emperor. He is very nervous, but he tells the Emperor all he wants to know. Baron Goth is surprised that even the Emperor wants to know about Rose and her work at the hospital. She must be really important. Baron Goth tells him the same thing and explains that she is a pure genius. The Emperor is not certain that any of this is true as it seems insane. He is certain that Alice is a smart girl, but these stories sound too wild. Finally, the Emperor asks Baron Goth about the medical exam for this year. He wants the test to be almost impossible to pass. Baron Goth confirms that he will make the test super hard. After he leaves, the Emperor is left alone to prepare for the birthday party. He plans to announce that his son Linden will be married to Alice on that day. Even if they have their bet, he will still announce this news no matter what. People in the kingdom are really curious who will be the wife of the prince. They hope that she is going to be a smart and kind person. They have faith in the Emperor and Prince Linden to choose the best wife. Also, they are happy that the Emperor is organizing a giant party for the birthday. Prince Lyndon is very curious how he can spend more time with Alice without revealing his true identity. He wants to get her a gift to show he cares for her. That is when he has a meeting with one of Alice's brothers, Len. Lyndon and Len talk about Alice and Lyndon asks about gifts she likes to get. Len is surprised by this question, but he tells the prince that she likes strawberry cakes and various other sweets. Lyndon then finally reveals his intentions. He asks what kind of gift she would like for someone confessing their feelings to her. Len explains that probably the best idea is to get her some expensive jewelry, as that is something she always liked. Prince Lyndon now finally has an idea what to buy for Alice as a gift. He then once again puts on his Ron disguise and goes to meet with her at the hospital. He gives her a giant diamond, but Alice rejects this gift. She is very thankful, but she does not accept gifts for her medical work. She explains that since Ron is a noble, he is already paying his bills, so no gifts are necessary. Ron is a bit confused. In the past, he remembers that Alice only cared about expensive things, but now it seems that she has totally changed. Finally, he asks her what kind of gift she would like. Alice tells Ron that she would like some strawberry cake. Ron then smiles and reveals that he will buy her all the cakes she wants next time. Ron then leaves and Alice is a bit flustered. The day of the birthday has finally arrived and Alice and her family are getting ready. Alice is already in her dress, but she is only focused on her medical studies. Her brother tries to get her to have some fun, but Alice is laser focused. That is when her brother notices that she is getting a bit sick. Alice tries to deny this, but at the end she ends up in bed with a high fever and she cannot go to the celebration. Alice has a high fever and she is not feeling well at all. She is in bed and sad that she is so weak. Her brother Chris arrives in the room and he gets really worried. He calls the doctor to come and examine Alice. Chris and Alice's father are very worried about her. Alice is such a great doctor that she is able to realize what type of sickness she has before the doctor figures it out. Alice realizes that she has a common cold and she just needs some rest. The doctor also confirms this. Her father does not want Alice going to the hospital anymore as he is getting too tired. Alice then begs him to understand. She promises to get better, but she has to return to the hospital as that is something she loves. Chris and their father find Alice too cute, so they cannot stop her from doing anything. They have to get ready for the celebration that the Emperor is organizing and Alice demands to go. Sign she is not that sick and she won't need to do anything at the celebration, she has to show up. She then decides to leave and go home after the Emperor is done with his speech. The entire family goes to the celebration. Alice is in a fancy dress, but she is barely walking. Alice is bored pretty fast, and since she is really tired, she decides to sit down and rest. She thinks about this celebration and how she misses her friend Michael. It seems they were great friends in this past life, but he is not here at all. Alice then spots that her other brother Len and Prince Lyndon have arrived at the event. Prince Lyndon looks distracted and it seems he is looking for Alice. At that moment, an old childhood rival shows up. She is called Lady Julian and she and Alice have always had arguments in the past. Lady Julian and Alice have had a long-term rivalry between them. They have been childhood rivals and often played pranks on each other. Lady Julian remembers that Alice has always been really mean to her and that she tortured her with cruel pranks. One time she actually threw water at Lady Julian and then laughed at her. Alice remembers how cruel she was in the original timeline and she truly feels really sorry. She apologizes to Lady Julian and tells her that she will never do something like that again. Lady Julian has no idea what is happening and she is confused by the way Alice is acting. At the same time, Alice remembers that Lady Julian also liked Prince Lyndon and wanted to marry him, but that is impossible because of her family and politics. Alice now feels bad for Lady Julian and she actually hopes that she would become the Empress. Lady Julian and Alice talk about the announcement that will be made by the Emperor. Julian is certain that Alice will be announced as the new wife of Prince Lyndon, but Alice does not think so at all. Lady Julian asks Alice if she would like to join her for tea at some point, and Alice is really happy about this. She does not want to be enemies with Lady Julian. At the same time, we see that Prince Lyndon is not loving this entire event. He hates that people are looking at him all over the place. Also, he is really worried about Alice. He realizes that Alice is sick and is having a hard time. He talks with her brother Len about this, but Len does not seem interested at all. Alice is now left alone and suddenly another noble approaches her to dance. This noble is called Louis and he is a very scary figure. Not only that, but Alice knows who he will become. Soon, when the war really gets going, Louis will be a brilliant and evil commander who will kill many people Alice loves and cares for. Louis will also lead the armies and make sure that her brother Chris dies. Alice cannot forgive this at all. Louis then comments how Alice actually ruined his military plan. Alice is surprised that Louis already found this out so soon. Still, Louis has an evil smile on his face and he asks Alice for a dance. Alice cannot reject this as it would be considered rude, but she still hopes that someone stops this dance. Suddenly, Prince Linden arrives and tells Louis to get away from Alice. Louis is very mean and he starts to insult Prince Linden right away. It seems that they are also rivals, but they actually hate each other. They were actually in war recently, so they are mortal enemies. Louis makes fun of the prince and calls him the empty prince. Linden then tells him to move away from Alice as it's obvious she doesn't want to dance with him. Louis stops for a moment and apologizes to Alice for being so forward. He still promises to dance with her one day. Louis then leaves and Alice tells Prince Linden that she really did not want to dance with Louis. Alice has never seen the prince this upset. She is very thankful for Prince Linden for stepping in, but he does not want to take any credit. He then asks Alice for a dance and she is really surprised as he has never acted this way towards her. The two of them start to dance and everyone is amazed by their dance skills. Alice remembers that in the original timeline their dance did not go so well. She was not able to follow the prince in his lead, so they got into a fight. Linden notices through the dance that something is not right with Alice. He still does not know that she has a high fever. Finally, he stops the dance to ask her if she is okay, but Alice does not reveal anything. Prince Linden then takes off his gloves and checks her face. It's obvious now that she has a high fever. He then takes her to a royal room to rest. Alice feels a bit awkward, but Prince Linden tells her to sit and get some rest. He is also very sorry for asking her to dance because she was so tired and sick. Alice does not understand why the prince is not nice to her. In the original timeline, he hated her and never spoke to her in this kind way. In the original timeline, he hated her and soon enough Alice started to hate him and she became really cruel. This all ended with the prince ordering Alice to be killed. Prince Linden tells Alice to take some rest until the emperor is ready to do his speech. Alice asks the prince why he is being this nice to her. Prince Linden is surprised by this question, but he just tells her to rest, and then he leaves. Prince Linden orders many strawberry cakes and sends them all to Alice so that she has something to eat. Alice is sick, but she can still enjoy some cake. She is very happy and realizes that this cake is the same as a baker she used to love. The maid reveals that this baker was hired by the Empire to work for them. Alice is a bit sad as now the common people will not be able to taste these delicious cakes. After a while, Alice starts to fall asleep as she is really tired. Finally, she is woken up by Duchess Harver. She is a nice old lady and she helps Alice to get up. It seems that the emperor is ready to deliver his speech. Alice can barely stand and Duchess Harver helps her. Alice very soon realizes that the Duchess is also sick, but her condition is more serious. It seems that Duchess Harver has Parkinson's, which is very serious sickness. In the original timeline, Alice remembers that Harver choked on some food because of this sickness. As there is no cure for this sickness, Alice just has to be there to help the Duchess if something happens. Finally, it's time for the emperor to give his speech. Alice is barely awake, but she is happy that she will finally be able to go home and rest. The emperor starts his speech and then goes to his announcement. He is supposed to announce the future wife of his son Prince Linden, but he then says that he will have to delay this announcement. He tells everyone that he has to wait until Alice reaches a more mature age. Alice is now furious. The emperor basically revealed that she will be the one to marry Prince Linden, but he did in a sneaky kind of way. This was not their deal. He was supposed to keep that a secret until she passed her medical exams. Alice has a dream. In her dreams, she has visions of the past. She remembers Prince Linden and her execution. In her past life, she hated him and he hated her even more. He told her to burn in hell before he killed her. In the present, Alice wakes up and she is really scared. She has not had this dream in a while. She hates that memory. While she has yet to recover from her sickness, Alice gets up and takes some medicine. These painkillers will help her walk normally and will help with her sickness. She goes outside and there everyone is talking about her engagement to Prince Linden. Alice does not like that the emperor announced something like this as it goes against their bet. Alice is humble and she tells the people that the engagement is not official so the emperor could change his mind. The people are amazed how humble she is as they do not believe her. Alice later meets with the Duchess that has Parkinson's. They talk and the Duchess talks about Linden and how sweet he was as a boy. The Duchess is very happy that Alice might marry the prince in the future. The Duchess takes a sip of her drink and starts to choke. Alice has to help her, but she knows that this is because of her condition. Alice then goes to meet the emperor who wants to talk with her. The emperor has missed Alice and he wants her to make him the special tea she makes. Alice goes to make the tea and she wonders what the emperor will do. She thinks that maybe he will stop their bet and force her to marry the prince. Finally, Alice confronts the emperor about their bet. She hopes that she can still have a chance to become a doctor. The Emperor explains that the bet is still happening as agreed. He made an announcement that was not official. He really got excited about the fact that Alice could be his daughter in the future, and he really wants her to be part of the royal family. The Emperor is certain that she would be a great wife and would help the empire. Also, he can take back the announcement if Alice manages to fulfill her dream. Alice has to achieve something as a doctor that will be greater than her being the empress of the entire land. At that moment, they suddenly hear noise outside. It seems that the Duchess has fallen down and she is dying. Alice now has to be the doctor and save her life. The Duchess is dying and everyone is calling for a doctor. Alice rushes over to the Duchess and sees what is happening. The Duchess is already turning blue and it seems that she does not have enough time to live. Alice will have to act fast if she wants to save the Duchess. The people around them do not know what to do. Some people try to stop Alice, but she tells them to leave her alone as he does not have enough time. Alice realizes that she only has about 30 seconds and then the Duchess is dead. She will have to perform an operation with a knife. She has to free up the airway and that is the only way the Duchess will survive. Alice takes the knife and prepares to slice open the throat. She has to be careful. If she even misses by a few inches, she will cut an artery and kill the Duchess. Alice breathes in and finally does the cut. She manages to free the airway and then she puts the Duchess down. She has saved her life and she performed a medical operation that has not been discovered in this timeline. Alice realizes that she will now be in giant trouble as nobody knows what she did. The guards arrive and pull out their swords on Alice. They take her away as all the people are left shocked about what just happened. Alice's father goes to talk with the Emperor. Some people are saying that Alice tried to kill the Duchess, but he has to explain to the Emperor that this is not what happened. The Emperor understands and he thinks that Alice is innocent. Still, she performed a medical operation that seems to be unknown. For that reason, she is in custody. The Emperor did not put her in prison but in another castle. He will now send the best doctors to check what happened. The Duchess is actually doing much better, but the doctors have to examine what Alice did. If it's proven she saved the life of the Duchess, she will be rewarded. If not, she will be punished. The Emperor is hoping that Alice will be punished so that she does not go to the hospital ever again. He hopes that she will lose the bet. We then see Alice alone sleeping in the faraway castle. Prince Lyndon has sneaked past the guards. He wanted to see Alice as he misses her and cannot stop thinking about her. The prince notices that Alice is struggling in her sleep trying to save someone. The prince realizes that he has real feelings for her. Lean and Chris arrive to talk with Alice. They have brought her some medical books so that she does not get bored while she is alone. Chris is a bit angry as he thinks that Alice acted too fast and she got into so much trouble. On the other hand, Len is very calm and he praises Alice. He tells her that she did the correct thing and that he is sure this will all get cleared out soon. Alice realizes that this is the first time her brother Len praised her in this way. He is always so cold and mean towards her. She does not know what happened. Finally, the Emperor has a meeting with the top doctors in the land. They have all gathered around to talk about the medical surgery that Alice did. The Emperor is excited as he is sure that the doctors have found major flaws in the operations and he will win the bet. The doctors then suddenly start talking about the operation being the work of a genius. The Emperor is totally shocked. He cannot believe it. The doctors are totally amazed by Alice and they think she is a genius. She did the operation in only 10 seconds, which is an insane time. They talk about the fact that the Doctors Society has been talking about an operation like this for a while, but nobody was ever brave enough to perform it. Alice did an amazing job and she did not make any mistakes. It was all perfect. Then they start talking about her notes. She wrote a detailed description of the operation, which means she knew what she was doing. This was no accident as she described every single detail in this note. The doctors want to publish her notes in medical journals. They think she is the next genius doctor. The Emperor hates this development. This means Alice will become famous and she will win the bet. He did not want this to happen, but he believes the doctors and their opinions. In the meantime, Alice is still alone. She thinks about Len and Chris. While Len will be very successful as a commander in the upcoming war, Chris will die. Alice is still determined to stop this from happening. At that moment, a mysterious young man arrives in her chambers. This man has blonde hair and is very handsome. He starts to tease Alice and introduces himself as Michael, the long-lost brother of Prince Lyndon. Alice starts to cry as she was great friends with Michael in her original life. She stops herself as she does not want Michael to realize that she knows him. Michael is totally surprised as he has never met Lady Alice before. Alice tells him that she just has dust in her eyes as she does not want him knowing she got emotional. Michael thinks that this girl is strange, but he wants to spend time with her. Alice remembers the original timeline. There she was great friends with Michael. He was always getting into trouble, so they would hang out. Michael always wondered why Alice was so in love with Prince Lyndon, and they would make fun of the prince. For Alice, he was the only friend she ever truly had while she was the Empress. Michael has a very tragic future in this timeline. He will go to war and die as well. There are also some mysterious reasons why he dies in the future, and Alice does not know how to stop this. Alice and Michael start talking about life, and Michael reveals that he is also trapped in this castle. Alice is surprised, but he reveals that he is getting out soon and he will be traveling far away. They decide to hang out and talk. Alice and Michael start to laugh and talk about their life. It's obvious that we are fast becoming friends. Michael continues to visit Alice every day while she is in the castle. They spend more and more time together and truly become friends even in this reality. Alice tells him that she does not plan to marry Lyndon and that she wants to become a doctor. Michael has a hard time understanding why a noble woman would become a doctor. Alice explains that it's the same reason he uses a sword even if he has special emperor bloodline powers. Michael likes to use his sword and he is very good at it. That is the same reason Alice wants to be a doctor. She truly loves it. She also explains that if she did not become a doctor, she would not live a happy life. Later in the day, Michael decides that they should drink and celebrate. Alice knows that in the morning she has a meeting with the doctor council to talk about her verdict. Still, Michael convinces her to drink at least a bit. They both talk and have fun while drinking the entire night. Alice then remembers that in the original timeline, Michael wanted to tell her something, but he died before he could have. Michael also really likes Alice, and he might have deeper feelings than he's letting on. Alice falls asleep and Michael leaves and hopes to see her one day in the future. In the morning, Alice is woken up by the doctors. When she opens the door, she is shocked to find the same doctors that she has been working for as Rose. It seems that her cover has been blown. The doctors are all shocked that Alice is the same person as Rose. Alice realizes that she has been caught and there is no point in keeping up the lie. She bows down and reveals to the doctors that she is in fact Lady Alice from the noble family. The doctors are all surprised, some angry, but also one doctor thinks that he realized it before because of her strange behavior. Alice now wants to know what will happen with her. The doctors surprise her with the news that she has been cleared of all charges and she can return to her normal life. But that is not all. She is going to be given a royal reward and she will become the first woman to become a dame. The title of dame is very important and basically it's the closest thing to a knight. Also, Alice gets to talk with Tay Count, whose wife she saved. This count is very famous in the land and he is grateful for her help. He thanks her for giving him and his wife more years together. Alice is happy that she was able to save someone important. Now she realizes that while she will be getting a royal reward, the medical test is coming up soon. She has to manage her time and use it all for studying. Still, the Emperor is playing his games. He really wants Alice to fail their bet. He organizes the ceremony for her award during the last days of her preparation for the exam. Alice arrives at the ceremony and pretends that everything is okay. She knows that she has a lot of work to do, but she is ready. Alice remembers her life on Earth in the modern timeline. She remembers being an orphan and also studying for medical school all the time. That was her entire life, so she is ready for this test no matter what. The day of the test arrives and Alice goes into the classroom with the other students. The test starts and all the other students start to freak out. They can't believe these questions as they are all very hard. Alice takes one look at the test and realizes something really amazing. The test is the same as the one she did in Korea during the modern timeline. It has the same type of questions. Alice is now even more certain that she can nail this test. Alice has finally finished writing her test and she is pretty tired. Still, she is happy that it's over. Part of her thinks that she did great on the test, but the other part is not so sure. She gave very complex answers and many of the medical problems were not from this time. She is worried that the doctors will not accept her answers. While she is happy it's over, she is nervous as she does not want to marry Lyndon. While Alice is certain that this time she would not be so unhappy in that marriage, she just does not want to repeat that same life. She truly hoped to become a doctor. In that moment, Ron shows up. This is Prince Lyndon when he transforms to hide his appearance. Ron is very charming and he has come to see Alice after her test. Alice is disappointed as she is not certain that she will pass. Lyndon gets a bit angry as it seems she really does not want to marry him. Still, she wants to celebrate with her, so he asks her to come and eat something with him. Alice is happy to join Sir Ron for a meal. The two go to a bakery where Alice can order whatever cake she wants. At first she does not want to spend a lot, but Ron tells her to buy whatever she wants. The two sit down and have a nice meal. Alice is happy that she can enjoy some cake. Later in the day they ride in a carriage. There is a bit of awkward silence, but Alice likes it. She feels very safe and comfortable with Ron, and he feels familiar. Alice starts to think about who he reminds her of. She is almost there. Very soon she could figure out that he is actually Prince Linden. As the day finishes, Ron does not want to leave Alice. He comes up with an idea to go and see a theater play. Alice is surprised that Ron is being so charming, but she does not want to reject him. Ron invites Alice to go and see a theater play. Alice is a bit nervous, but she accepts his invitation. He expresses that he likes plays, but he wants to see one with her badly. Alice gets all flustered and thinks that maybe Ron really does like her. Still, Alice cannot believe this as they only meet in her medical office. The two spend the entire day together and watch the play. After the day is over, Ron returns to his castle. Now he can return to his original Prince Linden form. Linden is confused about his feelings for Alice. He really likes her, but also he has been pretending to be this Ron person, so she probably does not like Linden. Also, Linden cannot keep using his powers of changing his appearance for long. He has a special device and it takes his life force when he changes his appearance. His servant warns Linden that he has to be careful with his powers and he has to rest. Linden realizes that he will not be able to visit Alice in this form for a while. He has to recover his health. Still, he cannot stop thinking about her and how happy he feels. He has not felt this happy since the cursed day that changed him forever. The test results of the medical exam are now being graded. Soon horrible news hit all the students that went to the test. Most of them have failed. The teachers are surprised and they think about giving another test so that more people can pass the test. Still, there is one person that passed the test with flying colors. It's Alice, of course. It seems that her score is 99, which is insane. The doctors were totally surprised. Most of the medical questions were about problems that have not been solved yet. That is why most of the students failed. Still, Alice was able to answer all these questions without a problem. It's so insane that the doctors at first did not believe, but she answered most of the questions perfectly. Out of 200 questions, she only got 2 wrong, and those are only wrong because her handwriting was so horrible in those answers. Basically, she answered everything, which means she passed the test. Soon the news breaks and the people in the kingdom are surprised that the future empress is going to be a doctor. They all think that she is just going to marry Prince Linden, so they do not understand why she is going through so much trouble. Still, people are very happy for her great results in the empire. The emperor, on the other hand, is not. He cannot believe that she managed to pass the test after he made it extra difficult. Still, he cannot stop her from starting to be a doctor. But the bet is still not over. There are 4 more months until Alice has her growing up celebration. Until then, she has to achieve something incredible in the medical field. Not just incredible, but something more important than being the empress. Still, the emperor is not certain that he will win this bet, as Alice has proven time and time again that she is way too brilliant. Everyone is now celebrating at Alice's house. Her father is super proud of her and her brother Chris is also super happy. Alice once more thinks about Chris and him dying in the future war. She wants to stop this and hopes that now the timeline has shifted a bit so he will survive. Even her stern and cold brother Len praises her for achieving something so great. Also, he has some strange questions for her. Len wants to know what Alice likes, what her favorite color is, and a bunch more. This is not Len asking. Basically, Prince Linden ordered him to find this out. Prince Linden is really trying to find a way to be romantic towards Alice. Alice tells her brother that she will tell him everything later. Alice is super happy about everything and she is relieved that she can finally become a doctor like she always wanted. Still, there is more time for the emperor to change his mind, so she has to be really great. Alice starts to work at the hospital and she is great. She works all day every day with many patients. She is working super hard and basically does not have time for anything else. Soon a few weeks fly by and very soon 2 months go by. Alice has been working at all times. She even got sick and still tries to go to the hospital and work. This always worries her father and brothers, but they have to let her go. Alice thinks back at her life in modern Korea and how people there always thought she was obsessed with work. Every other doctor thought she was crazy because she would spend every moment in the hospital. They just didn't get how much Alice loves this job. While that is happening, problems are hitting the empire. The emperor is shocked that the enemy has created an army with over 400 soldiers. The emperor is now afraid that this will go out of control. Prince Linden is also there during the meeting in the war room, and he realizes that a giant conflict is starting. No kingdom or empire is now safe. The emperor is now really worried. The armies of the enemy are too great. They can only gather about 150 soldiers in the coming weeks. This will not be enough for a direct battle. To gather any more soldiers, it would take time, as the empire is big and it takes time for people to get ready and arrive. Lyndon is going to the front lines and he is getting ready for battle. The Emperor is worried about his son. He tells him to be careful. Even if he has some powers, he cannot dodge bullets. Lyndon promises his father that he will be careful, and then he leaves. The Emperor remembers the last war that happened years ago. In this war, his 3 sons went into battle. His oldest son was brave and strong, but he died in battle. His body was never recovered. The Emperor was broken by grief. He does not want to lose anyone else from his family. He cannot forget how his son was before all this tragedy came his way. Lyndon was once a smiling boy that was happy, but now he is just sad all the time. The Emperor truly hoped to see Lyndon and Alice marry before the war started. Now that will probably never happen. In the meantime, it's agreed that now a lot of the noble families will have to send their sons in battle. This means that Chris and Len are going to war. This is something that Alice wanted to prevent. We see that Alice is still working hard in the hospital. There has been a strange occurrence of deaths in old people lately. This is the 4th person who died from diarrhea in the last couple of days. That means there is a connectivity between all these victims. Alice starts to figure out this pretty quickly. She realizes that maybe there is something connecting the victims. Maybe this is a start to an epidemic. The nurses and all the doctors get scared, as this means that things are going to get very dangerous. Alice is still not sure, so she orders the nurses to find information if there have been deaths that are similar to this in recent days. Alice later gets really worried as the epidemic is now happening earlier in the timeline. She hopes that she is wrong, but if this truly is an epidemic, it could kill thousands. Alice remembers that in the original timeline, the epidemic killed over 100 people. She now has to find a way to stop this epidemic from spreading so that people are safe. Alice goes to meet with Sir Ron for what might be their final meeting. Lyndon can no longer use his powers of changing his appearance, and also he is going to war. Alice and Ron walk during the night and talk. Ron wants to tell her something. Finally, he gets enough courage and tells her that he is going to war. Alice is really emotional. She did not even notice, but she started to care for Sir Ron. These past few months they have spent a lot of time together. Even if he is a bit cold and distant, he is always nice. She is now sad as him going to war means he will be in danger. He might never come back. Ron tries to explain that he has to do this and they will not meet for a long time. Alice is sad, but Ron tries to make her feel better. He promises that he will be okay and that he will come back to her. He truly has feelings for her and hopes to see her again. Ron prepares to leave, but Alice has to give him something. She gives him an emblem that her mother gave to her. This is a very rare and nice gesture. She is giving him this and tells him that he has to return it when he gets back. Alice tells him that she will be really angry if he does not come back. Ron is moved by this gesture and promises to return the emblem to Alice. When Ron enters the carriage, his powers turn off and he is back to being Lyndon. Lyndon knows that he had to do this and say goodbye to Alice. He feels bad for tricking her this entire time. When Alice returns home, she gets some really bad news. Chris and Len are going to war as well. Everyone in the family is now crying and Alice is very emotional. She knows what will happen to both of them, and especially Chris. She does not want to lose her brother all over again. When Chris enters her room, Alice starts to cry and begs him to stay. Chris assures her that everything will be okay. He then asks her if he could have the emblem that mother gave to her. That same emblem thought Alice gave to Ron not hours ago. Alice is furious with Chris. She does not want to give him an emblem, as that means she will probably never see him again. She has been hurt so much by Ron leaving, and she already has trauma from Churs dying in the original timeline. Alice screams at him and leaves. She goes back to her room and cries there. She is so sad that she cannot change the timeline. She does not want to lose her brother again. She does not get any sleep and basically cries the entire night. The following morning, she has a meeting with one of the doctors that is working with her. He even notices that Alice does not look very good, as she is very tired. Alice wants to know what is happening with the epidemic. There is news about this and it's not really good. It seems that there has already been 80 people that have died, and those numbers are rising by the day. Also, it's not certain that there are more people in beds every day. They are getting sick all the time. These numbers will blow up in the coming days, which means the epidemic is just starting. At this moment, Alice realizes that this is the epidemic that hit in the original timeline. The second great epidemic in this kingdom. The last epidemic hit 20 years ago when many people died. Alice knows from her knowledge of the timeline that in this epidemic even more people die, about 100. In the meantime, the Emperor has a meeting with various doctors. He even talks with Gallic, the chief of public health. Gallic has a theory about this epidemic. He thinks it's caused by the dirty air, and that they have to change this to stop Tay sickness. Lyndon is also there during this meeting. He remembers a time where he talked with Alice about these types of illnesses. She mentioned that diarrhea cannot be caused by air. It can only be caused by water in the food supply. Lyndon says this during the meeting and surprises everyone with his knowledge. Gallic is still trying to convince people that it's the dirty air, and that they might have a solution for it. While that is happening, Alice figures out that contaminated water and foods is causing this illness. She has to solve this problem, but then she remembers that there is a way for her to save the people of the city and her brother Chris. She has to meet with the Emperor right away. Alice goes to meet with the Emperor. He is very surprised to see her as she has not come to visit in many months since she has been working as a doctor. Alice explains to the Emperor that she knows the cause of the illness and she can cure it. The Emperor is really surprised, but he wants to listen to her because she is the brilliant Dame Alice who has already performed many medical miracles. Alice explains that the toxic air has nothing to do with the illness and she needs 3 days to cure it. She already knows the method to use and she will stop the spread fast enough. Alice is aware that this will be a super hard process, but she is certain that she can do it. The Emperor decides to accept her request and he will give her all she requires to stop this epidemic. At that point, Alice notes that if she stops this, she would achieve something great as a doctor. This means she will win the bet. The Emperor is disappointed. He realizes that this is possible and it would be fair. He cannot hold Alice back anymore and he accepts her terms. She explains that this illness is called cholera and its origins come from far away. It gets into the human system by a bad water supply and bad water. Alice has a plan to stop it, but she will need help. She then tells the Emperor that she has changed the terms of their bet. She will indeed marry Prince Lyndon, but the Emperor will then have to give her some favors. The Emperor is shocked by this new change. Alice has changed her mind. While her marriage with Lyndon will be without love, she will not ruin everything like before. She tells the Emperor that there are some terms to this. First, her and Prince Lyndon should not marry until the war is over. The Emperor accepts this as he also does not want a royal wedding at this moment. Also, if Prince Lyndon does not want to marry Alice, the Emperor will allow him to back out. The Emperor accepts all these terms as he is happy with this new deal. Alice then mentions that there is another favor. She will not hurt the Empire in any way, but if she cures all these people, the Emperor has to do something else. He will have to do a giant favor. The Emperor accepts this and promises to honor his word. Alice now leaves the palace and prepares for her new mission. She thinks about her entire situation. She will not be able to be a doctor because she will have a duty as an empress. Her marriage will not turn out to be horrible, but she will try to not get Prince Lyndon into any trouble. Hopefully now she can save her brother Chris from certain death. At this moment, Alice feels trapped and she starts to cry once more. Suddenly Prince Lyndon shows up and Alice thinks that he is Ron by his voice. She was just thinking about Ron and how she misses him. At that moment, Prince Lyndon comes to talk with Alice. Alice is very emotional, but she tries to hide her tears. Lyndon asks her what is wrong, but she does not want to talk about it. Alice and Lyndon talk about the situation and it's obvious that Lyndon is worried about her. Still, now it's time to get to work and try to stop this epidemic from destroying the city. Alice now joins the special council where she will be working on figuring out what is happening in the city. Some people are very shocked when she joins in the meeting as she is very young and is not experienced in this sort of thing. The public health leader thinks that Alice should not be in the meetings. He is certain that air is causing the toxic illness to spread. Alice very confidently explains that this is not what is happening and it's actually being spread by toxic water and food. There are some people who do not agree and start to get into arguments with Alice. After a while, Prince Lyndon stops this. He does not want anyone to disagree with Alice and they all need to let her do her job. Alice is surprised that Prince Lyndon stepped up for her. She thanks him, but he is still cold towards her and basically tells her that it was the right thing to do. Alice explains that she needs the map to the city and about 30 patients from all over the city. Soon they start their research and find that there are some places that all the infected people have visited. Alice now has to figure out which part of the city is causing the problem and the epidemic. She now has to go there and survive the area herself. Lyndon is nervous about letting her go totally alone. Alice is confused about why he is so worried about her. Prince Lyndon is still hiding his true feelings and the fact that he was wrong the entire time. Alice is confused. She does not understand why Prince Lyndon is so worried about her. Lyndon does not want her to go where the toxins are the highest. He really cares about her and does not want Alice to get hurt. Finally, Lyndon realizes that Alice will go no matter what, so he decides to join her in the mission. They now go to explore the city. They have to find what is causing the epidemic. They have to find where the people are getting sick. The prince has hired a carriage and there are some soldiers with them. Alice can now focus on finding the solution and soon she realizes something. There is a place where a company releases toxins. This might be a place where the sickness has started. Alice and Lyndon arrive to this location and there they find a lot of the water totally toxic. It seems that the entire water system has been infected and has been stuck with horrible dirty objects. This is where the illness started and now Alice finally has a way to stop this from happening. Lyndon orders the water supply to be shut off. Some of the people in the council get mad at this and they think this is a horrible idea. Lyndon orders them to shut off the water supply and he decides to take responsibility if something goes wrong. Lyndon tells Alice that he believes in her and that he is sure that she is right. Alice is totally confused as he has never been this nice to her. In the meantime, they manage to stop the water from Ty's river from infecting the city. This river was filled with various toxins and has been causing the illness. Alice now goes to take care of the patients. In just 2 days there is a lot less patients and it's obvious that the illness is stopping. There have only been a few deaths and the people are getting a lot better. The difference between this epidemic and what happened 20 years ago is insane. Alice is happy that she was right and managed to stop this from spreading. Finally, after 3 days, the entire cholera epidemic seems to have ended. The people are now celebrating and they know that Dame Alice saved all of them. She is now the main hero in the town and Alice is happy that she managed to prevent any more people from dying without reason. Now there is only one thing left to do. She has to talk with the Emperor about their terms and their bet. Alice talks with the Emperor and Prince Lyndon. They are happy that she was able to save all the people. Alice explains that now the illness is over but there is still work to be done in the city. They have to change the entire water supply. The town is big and it will only grow. If they want to avoid any future epidemic like this from happening, the Empire has to put up 5 million of their own money to fix the system of water supply. The Emperor loses his mind because of this amount. Still, he respects Alice so he'll listen to her. Finally, it's time to talk about the final term. The reason why Alice did all this. The Emperor once more agrees that he will give her anything she wants unless it harms the Empire. Now it's time for Alice to say her terms. She explains that she wants to go to war instead of her brother Chris. She will be a medic soldier and she will go on the front lines. That is her wish for the Empire but honor. The Emperor loses his mind and he is truly angry at Alice. Prince Lyndon is shocked and he cannot believe that she would do something like this. Alice knows that she made the Emperor angry but she is happy that she prevented her brother from dying. She will now become a soldier and help many people in the front lines. At that moment, Prince Lyndon comes to confront Alice. He is angry that she did something so dangerous. He cannot believe it, but Alice explains that she has her reasons. She wants to protect her empire and also finish her duty. Also, Alice comments that there is nothing between her and the prince, so he should not be worried. Prince Lyndon returns to his office and finally realizes that he loves Alice. He hopes that she will be safe and he promises to make sure she is protected while in the army.
At the end of every day, you look yourself in the mirror and you ask yourself, did I get better today? If the answer is yes, and you do that for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, how much better are you going to be? Are you getting better every single day? That's the question. And it's just taking small steps. You don't try to get it all done in 1 day, in 1 week, in 1 year. It's the process of getting better every day and doing that for a period of years that then create the masterpiece.